Hello guys, welcome back to KMA Catfish Farming. At KMA Catfish Farming, we put information out there for would-be catfish farmers. They are the ones that this channel is for. Those who want to go into catfish farm, this channel is for you. Even if you are already into catfish farming and you think the advice we give here is useful for you, you can also watch our videos and apply to your farm. Well, first of all, may I humbly ask you to subscribe to my channel, click the notification bell, comment at the comment section. I will do my possible best to answer, give thumbs up, and also share for others to know about KMA catfish farming. Because I always say that if KMA catfish farming have been able to establish without consulting or paying anybody to do our setup for us, we did it ourselves, we've harvested our first produce, then anyone also can do it. Well, today's topic is the type of pond that one can use, the advantages and disadvantages. Well, we have about 4 or 5 types of pond that is common that we all know people use for their catfish farming. Well, we have earthen pond, tarpaulin pond, concrete pond, and then plastic pond. You know, people buy this huge plastic containers and they use it to rear their catfish, which they do very well also. Well, number one, let's talk about concrete pond. Concrete pond is a type of pond that you can use to produce your catfish, which is very good. But before you think of choosing of concrete pond, you have to know that where your setup will be is owned by yourself. That you don't rent a place from someone, because it's a structure that is permanent. When you put it there, you cannot move it. And concrete catfish does very well in concrete pond, because when you treat your concrete after you done the setup, everything, you need to treat it. And when you treat it, the pond itself correct your water pH. For example, if your water pH is not very good, or whoever has a pH tester can try this in his or her home. When you buy, let's say, pure water or any type of water that the water pH is like 6, 6.5 or 5, take a piece of concrete bricks or a piece of a bricks or block or whatsoever, and then put it in your pH tester. That is, after you've put your water, your pH solution into the water, and you've seen that the water parameters is not that good, put a piece of block or concrete in the water, shake it for a little while. You will see that the pH, the water pH, will be normal. So concrete pond is very good. It corrects your water pH when you treat your pond. That is, when you make your setup with your concrete pond, first you have to treat it, because if you don't treat it and you put water in and you stock your fingerlings or your juveniles, they will die because of the cement that is in the pond. The water will soak it up and the fish cannot live in and they will die. So when you set up your concrete pond, you have to treat it. When you treat it, someone will ask, how am I going to treat it? First, you have to fill in with water. You have to look for plantain stem and then the dry leaves from the plantain. You cut all those, and then you cut the plantain stem into pieces. Let's say if you have let's say 4 feet or 5 feet or 6 feet of a plantain stem, you may cut it into 2 or 3. with the plantain dry leaves. Then you put it in the water to sit for at least 2 to 3 weeks. When they stay in at that period, you will see that some small living creatures start to live in the water. That means that the pond is habitable for the fish to live in. You will see alive animals like a tadpole, or you may see something like a worm on all these things swimming in the water. That means the pond is ready to use for your catfish farm, for your catfish. Yeah. And also, with the advantages, one of the advantages of concrete pond is that you can see your fishes at any time. You see what is going on in your water. You see what is going on. If the fishes are sick, it's easy to determine. If your fishes are, some of them are growing past others, it's easy also to see, so that you can separate them. So concrete pond have this kind of advantages. But the disadvantages is that you can immediately you set up your concrete pond, you cannot move it. That is, it has stayed at the place permanently unless you destroy it. So if you are choosing a concrete pond, you have to look at all those options. One, the land is for you, that where you have made your setup, you are not moving. Some people rent land to set up their businesses. Some people also, where they live, they set up this kind of businesses. But as time goes on, they see that the business is growing and they have to expand. But since they don't have space to do that, they have to look for somewhere else. And in doing so, you have to destroy your concrete pond and then move to another place. So when you are going for concrete pond, you have to look at all these options, and you have to look at the cost also of doing, because nowadays building materials and stuff like that is very, very expensive. So you must weigh these options so that you see which one suits you best. Number 2 is tarpaulin pond. People use tarpaulin pond to set up their catfish farming. And at the same time, tarpaulin pond also can be called a mobile pond, because you can move it from one place to the other. That is why most people prefer tarpaulin pond, because, for example, when you rent a place, or let's say the place that you are living in there, and you have a space to put up your tarpaulin pond there. As time goes on, when your business grow and you want to expand and you have gotten a new place, you can move all your equipment to go and set up there. So tarpaulin pond have this kind of advantage. It also have an advantage of seeing your fishes in terms of diseases, their growth. You can see them. So it's easy when diseases are in your pond. It's easy for you to treat. It's easy for you to make separation. When some of them are sick, you put them in isolation. So tarpaulin pond and concrete pond have this similar or have the same advantages. But the disadvantage is that concrete pond you cannot move. And then with tarpaulin pond also, its disadvantage is that it will last up to 3 to 5 years. After 3 to 5 years, that means this is where the leakages, some of the metal posts will be rusting, will be breaking, will bend because of the weight of the fish and the water. So you have to replace and put new ones. But with the treatment of tarpaulin pond, it is the easiest and then the shortest also, because you don't need to fill in with the plantain stem, the leaves, or the poultry waste. With the poultry waste, you can use it to treat all the pond. With the plantain leaves, also the same. But tarpaulin pond treatment is very, very easy. All you need to do is to have your salt. wash it very well with salty water. After that, you rinse it, wash it thoroughly with fresh water. Leave it to dry for 1 day, and then fill in again with fresh water. Leave it to settle for another day so that the oxygen will settle. And then you are ready to go to stock your fingerlings. Some people said, okay, may choose to put poultry waste, may choose to put a banana or plantain stem and then the dry leaves to treat it for at least a week. But if you want it as quick as possible, 3 days is okay. That is when you use salt water to wash very well, wash thoroughly. After that, you rinse it and then you leave it to dry for 1 day, and then you put in fresh water to stay for another day for the oxygen to settle, and then you stock your fingerlings juveniles in your pond. That means you are ready to go. And then if you are going for plastic pond also is very good. That is also, you treat it the same like you treated the tarpaulin pond. The treatment and all this thing is the same, because tarpaulin pond and the plastic pond are going side by side. Yeah, it has its advantage and disadvantages. The disadvantages of tarpaulin pond and the plastic pond is that as time goes on, they may be broken and you have to replace it or you have to fix it. Yeah. And then we talk about earthen pond or mud pond. The advantage of earthen pond is that catfish does very, very well in earthen pond. They do very well because when you use an earthen pond, the fishes lives in their natural environment. So, for example, when it rains, sometimes the rainwater contain acid. So, when you have tarpaulin pond like this and the rainwater is too much, it doesn't help the fishes. It brings some kind of disease to them, because of the acid. But when you are using earthen pond, it neutralizes the acidic water. Immediately it touches the ground, the sand or the mud or whatsoever, neutralize the acidic level, and then the fishes are okay. And also, it's less cost to run earthen pond. For example, in catfish farming, 70% or 70 to 80% of your expenditure is on feeding. And we all know how feed has become so expensive. But when you run an earthen pond, you spend at least 50%, 40 to 50% to feed your catfish, because there you don't spend much on feed. Why? Because the catfish, they eat the mud also. They eat the mud. For example, you may ask me, why am I saying this? When it's dry season, the catfish, they go deep down the ground. They go under the ground to stay there where it's cold, where they have water, to stay there until it will be raining season for them to come up again. Yeah, and when they stay there, they eat some of the mud. So when you throw in feed and it gets to the ground, it got rotten, the catfish may have advantage of eating the mud and all this together. The worms, anything that is living thing apart from the catfish in the water, they will eat it to survive, and they will grow very well also. But the disadvantage of earthen pond also is that you don't see what is going on under your water or under your pond, because already the water surface is not that clean. So you may think that, for example, you have like 5,000 fishes in your pond. If you don't do regular sorting, how would you know that you still have 5,000 fishes in your pond? When they are eating themselves, how would you know? You wouldn't know. So the disadvantages of mud pond or concrete pond is that you don't see what is going on under your water. But aside that, they do very well, very, 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 very well in mud pond or earthen pond. They do very well. I would say they do very well in that than concrete and tarpaulin pond. So you have the option to choose which one you think is good for you. And the treatment of earthen pond, after you dig your pond, what do you need to treat it? If you can use limestone powder, or they have some like in a tablet form, you can use to treat, or you can use the poultry waste also to treat, so that you fertilize your pond and it is ready to go. When you are using the poultry waste, you put them in a sack anywhere, either it is earthen pond, concrete pond, or tarpaulin pond. You put the poultry waste in a sack, you tie the knot, and then you throw it into the pond to sit for a while. And then after that, then for about 7 days, you take it out and it's ready to go. If you are using limestone powder, when you set up your pond, and then you cover the outside so that you don't allow any animal to go in, like frog or snakes and this, to go into the water. Then you use your limestone powder, you sprinkle it on top of the pond, so that it drives away the frog and the toad and all those things, and then it is free from any animal that may cause harm to your fingerlings. Because when they are small, they are very easy for those, especially the frog and the snakes and the monitor lizard, to eat them. So you need to secure it. And also, you don't have to set up your earthen pond where it is you have a flood, because when there is too much flood, it may wash out your fishes away. So you must choose where to set up your pond, the earthen pond. You must choose that place very careful before you dig your earthen pond. If you just go and you said, oh, I have a place that is marshy area, and you just go and you dig, and you don't do background check to see that when it rains, does it flood in this area, then you are in for trouble. But if it doesn't flood and just water just comes and the water level is not that much, then you are okay to go. And also, like, is the cost efficient is very good in running earthen pond. So I hope that what I have told you, you may analyze it yourself and you may choose which one is good for you. Either to go for earthen pond, mud pond, tarpaulin pond, concrete pond, or plastic pond. Whichever is good for you. Catfish does very well in all of them. So choose and choose wisely. I hope today's episode has helped you to decide which type of pond you want to go in for. But like I always say, always try to minimize your cost and maximize your profit. So analyze, look at them, and see which one is less costly to run. Thank you very much, and I hope to put a new video probably next week. Bye.